So, the translations are out for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 310, and let's just say, when it comes to this chapter, yeah, I think it may pretty much disconfirm the idea that both Bakugo and Kirishima were thrown back in time to save One for All. So, yay? Or is it? We'll actually talk about that in this chapter, right after the intro. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Big Blue Drew 97 here, coming at you with another My Hero Academia manga chapter review, this time reviewing manga chapter 310. And let me just say, when it comes to this chapter of My Hero Academia, we get a lot. Not like a whole lot when it comes to like the actual like story, like going more into how Deku's gonna stop the League of Villains, or where the League of Villains are, or any developments with the other Class 1A students. Not necessarily. We do not get any of that, but what we do get is a better understanding of what Deku is doing right now, but even more importantly, a better understanding of the first, second, and third users' connection with one another. So it's going to be very interesting to review this chapter, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. And before we get more into it, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that notification bell if you want to be notified for whenever I upload My Hero Academia content, such as reviews, spoilers, and potentially discussions moving forward. And without the way, let's get right into the chapter. So, before we actually get into the chapter, I really want to talk about this color cover page for chapter 310, Mentor and Pupil, where we have just this wonderful page of Deku just standing in a cityscape, just looking amazing. He's shaded in as if it's like dark time, but like everything around him is tinted red and black, most likely depicting all of the bloodshed and horror that's going on in Hero Society right now. And it just looks so amazing. It looks so cool. This is probably the only time Deku has looked amazing, barring the past few chapters where he's looked this cool and this amazing, wearing his like hero costume. It's mainly because it's torn up, but we also see that he has his like bracer gauntlets on, which are also red, which clashes with the sky itself. It's just very cool, very amazing. I really love this color page. So yeah, let's get actually into the actual chapter, where we actually start off with a dark, gloomy, and raining night. We see a bunch of vigilantes fighting off a monster, putting all of their force into stopping this weasel monster, and right before they're about to attack, Deku intervenes and stops the attack. Deku, what are you doing? They're trying to fight off a villain. Why are you saving the villain? Oh, right, this is Deku we're talking about. But no, in actuality, the people that we see at the beginning of this chapter firing at this weasel monster is not actually firing at a weasel monster. It's a weasel girl, or a squirrel girl, or... Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's a weasel because I'm fairly certain that she doesn't have a tail. So yeah, I think this is well, I think weasels also have tails. Either way, she's a part of the rodent family, most likely because of the squeaks, and she's being bombarded by attacks because we have these people who think that she is a villain. And so they're like throwing weapons at her, they're launching attacks at her, they're viewing her as a monster, and Deku has to jump in and saves her. And what's something very interesting about this panel is that I'm not 100% sure what's going on. It could be because these are just the rough translations of them and the rough images, but it seems as if Deku literally throws his body in front of the attack, and the attack just bounces right off of him. But from what it looks like in this panel, it doesn't seem as if it actually touches him, so maybe he has a force field like work. I may be diving way into this, but you have Deku who just jumps in and is trying to tell everyone to calm down because the tensions are high as he's trying to protect this squirrel, mink, whatever she is, rodent like girl, as we have these like three dudes, these three vigilantes saying like, oh no, she's not innocent, we're not gonna believe her, she just looks very suspicious, as they're running away. And this is where we get into something very interesting when it comes to My Hero Academia. Because when it comes to My Hero Academia, when it comes to certain quirks literally change the physiology of an individual, either giving them extra limbs, extra body parts, changing their facial features, and heck, even when it comes to the quirks themselves, they may not be inherent like changes from the quirk and just through the genetic lines that they have passed down. For example, when it comes to Tokoyami, he has a bird head, but his quirk is Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow has nothing to do with his bird head, but yet he has a bird head. And similar to like how you have characters like Suyu, whose quirk basically turned them into a frog. This woman is a weasel that most likely has a quirk that turns them into a weasel-like quirk. But because of her size and her appearance, these people thought that she was a villain, which shows that, oh yeah, she does have a tail, so yeah, she may be a squirrel. Oh, nope, that's an umbrella. Never mind. But tying back into what I was saying, because she looks like a monster because of these animal-like features, these people viewed her as a monster, viewed her as an enemy, and attacked her without even hearing out her explanation. And because Deku is the type of hero who wants to help everyone, he hears her out, and the reason why she seems quote-unquote suspicious is that she didn't evacuate the first time, and she thought that everything's going to be fine and safe. But after a while of living there where the casualties began building up, she realized that it wasn't safe and that she wanted to go back to the evacuation site of the hero school. That is her explanation of it. But because the people just saw her as this big monster, which, let me just say, it makes sense for why they would see her maybe as a big monster, because she is freaking huge. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a furry, but I am attracted to very tall women, and she is huge. She towers over Deku to a point where Deku literally has to use float to give her her umbrella back, which, you know, adorable. But yeah, the main idea of this entire scene, starting from the people attacking her, and Deku saving her and her explanation, and how she even asked Deku, is everything's gonna be alright? Is everything gonna be fine? Is everything gonna return back to normal? Where Deku gives her that resolve and says, yes, everything is going to be fine. But he has to leave, where we get All Might coming into the scene. But this entire scene is very impactful and is very important because there's many things from the scene. It shows that there are more people who are very discriminatory against specific types of people, which we've already known. It shows that these tensions or these ideas have become more apparent because of how society has like basically come to a halt, and later on we realize that it's actually reverted back to the previous like era of society of vigilantism. We also get to see how the perspective of like people within the areas that decided who didn't want to leave are now changing. And 4, we're getting more confirmation that society as we know it is completely different and is in disarray to the point where normal people who think that everyday life can continue come to a realization that it doesn't, and they may be attacked for it. So this scene in general just shows the problems and shows the repercussions of what the Paranormal Liberation War did, not just to society, but to the people themselves. They've become more paranoid, and now they've become even more unsafe wherever they are going. So yeah, as Deku leaves this scene with this weasel squirrel girl, we have All Might coming in his, I think that's Vestige's car. Dope. But he, oh wait, I just realized that's probably where he got his clothing from. Vestige. He's wearing a leather. I like that. I like that. So yes, All Might comes into the scene to take the woman to the evacuation shelter as Deku is preparing to leave the area. So you have this like really adorable scene that I really like between All Might and Deku, where Deku is basically telling All Might to take this weasel girl to the evacuation center, where this woman's like, oh, huh? Because she doesn't recognize that this person is All Might. But then you have All Might himself saying, wait, Midoriya, take this! Where he gives him a boxed bento of pork katsu, and it's like, yeah, you've been working non-stop lately, so you need to take it easy, and you need to eat it quickly. Where we just have this one image of Deku just, we don't see his smile, but we see like the arches in his eyes that indicate like he's happy, and he's like, thanks for the meal, and he's like, make sure it doesn't get cold, bye. And that's just so adorable to me, because it's like their parent and child, even though they are not related. So I guess you could say mentor and pupil. But this is going far beyond a mentor and pupil. I've never, well, actually no. I have had a mentor give me food. So yeah, I guess this is really accurate then. So yeah, we just have that one comedic scene, but going from that one comedic scene is where we go into pretty much the majority of this chapter, where we have Deku just basically like realizing that society is like crumbling, or specifically that society is going back to what it used to be during the times where All for One reigned. So you have Deku having a conversation with Daigoro Banjo, and how they're basically talking about how society has basically regressed, and how when it comes to Shigaraki, All for One, Dabi, the Nomus, the League of Villains, Paranormal Liberation Front, when it comes to all of these factions, they have no idea what's going on, and that even if they try to capture all of these released criminals, that they're just having havoc and they're leading them nowhere, and that if they are unable to stop All for One, that is now inside of Shigaraki, then there's no way that anything can improve, and that even Endeavor and Eraserhead working together may not be able to take them out. So Deku is now coming to the conclusion that, yes, I have to be the one to take out One for All, and if I don't do it, then nothing will ever improve, nothing will get better. All for One would rule over this world. And as he said this, we begin to go back in time once again into in a flashback, where we see Deku inside of the Vestige world of One for All right before he woke up, continuing the scene between the first user as he's asking for the second and the third user to cooperate with Deku, to work together with him, as he calls them my heroes. Roll credits. But yeah, this is where the chapter gets really interesting, because we get a better understanding of what happened in the Vestige world after the moment where Nana declared that she's thankful for what Deku said, and that she's sorry for putting this test upon him, as well as what happened with the first user asking the second and third users for help, as we get the realization and a little bit of reveal of their connections with each other, how the first user, the second user, and the third user all were connected together sort of through a string of fate. And a slight comedic scene happens where everyone just goes silent as neither the second or the third user responds, and Daigoro Banjo's like, I should probably fix this. Hey kid, you need to learn about the other quirks. Let's go over here and do it. Yeah, you'll need to know more about Shinomori and En's quirks, so let's go over here and do that visioning thing again. Yeah, everyone, yeah. Let's all come over here. Let's get rid of this awkward silence, and let's maybe give them some privacy. So yeah, Daigoro Banjo reads the room and basically gives the first, second, and third user times to themselves, so that they're able to really discuss, and for the first user to convince them to help Izuku Midoriya, which, spoilers, they kind of do. And what is very interesting is what they are talking about, and how they all come from the same era of history. So we get a very impactful conversation between the first, second, and third users, where we get the face revealed of both the second and the third user. And what is very interesting is that with the second user, we see that he has a scar across his face, and that, yeah, he kind of looks like Bakugo, but when it comes to his hair and his shading and his coloring, it could technically be Bakugo's hair, but the third user is definitely not Kirishima. Like, definitely not. His hair is white, Kirishima's hair is red, and unless you're saying that during the time where All for One was taking over, that Kirishima had the decency and the resolve to make sure that his hair was dyed red that entire time, get out of here. That's ridiculous. That's not the type of person Kirishima is. But yeah, we get their face reveal, and we kind of get their involvement with the fight with All for One. Well, we get the reveal that at the very least, when it comes to the third user, he was someone who was like born in this world that was taken over by All for One, that was dominated by this world, most likely, as well as we could say the same about the second user, and how when they work together, they try to fight off All for One, not by themselves, but with people that they rallied to go against them because they realized that they were being dominated, and that if it isn't for them, because we kind of get the confirmation that they're kind of the reasons why All for One was unable to conquer the world. He basically conquered all of Japan and was about to conquer the world, but they were able to stop them. But unfortunately, it did take them time, and it did take them a lot to push him back. But then they drop a major reveal. They drop the first user's name, who is now considered Yoichi. So now that we know the full name of the first user of One for All, which is Yoichi Shigaraki, because if you remember correctly, Shigaraki was All for One's last name. So now we can stop calling him One for All's younger brother, All for One's younger brother, and now we can just call him Yoichi. But we still gotta call All for One. That's gonna suck. But yeah, we get the reveal of the first user's name, which is Yoichi. But then we have the second user basically talking about like, yeah, you understand, Yoichi. Like, we had to sacrifice a lot of people to basically try to put him to an end. And when it comes to battle, it's either victory or defeat. And do you want me to get behind this kid who literally wants to save his enemy after everything that we've done? No, we can't do it. And that's what the second user says. But the first user has like a comeback for that. And he's like, yeah, you're right. You said that it's crazy. And you may be right. But if I remember correctly, I remember a pair of individuals that literally saved their enemy's brother. Yeah, you remember that? So yeah, we get the confirmation that the second and the third user were the ones to rescue and free Yoichi, the first user, from All for One's bondage, as he once again says that, yeah, you're the ones that extended a hand to me, and if it wasn't for the fact that you did that, One for All would not have started. So there's a reason why I brought this up in the first place. I'm here to convince you to work with this kid, so why don't you do it? As we have the second users like, do you really think this kid can save the day? And Yoichi's like, yes, I can. So this is very interesting, and it's very impactful, especially when we see the next page where he's basically talking about how One for All will never yield to his younger brother because of what the second user did by extending his hand and allowing for One for All to begin in the first place. And this is very interesting, and this is very impactful, because this is kind of symbolic to what Deku did with Kacchan, how he saw that Kacchan was in danger, and relatively speaking, Kacchan was Deku's bully, but he still extended a hand to him. Deku extended a hand to his bully, which shows the similarities and parallels that the second user and Deku have with one another. The second user's like, no, I would never save my enemy, but he did. In the same vein as how Deku helped and tried to save Bakugo, who he may have viewed as a bully. So it's very interesting to get this context. And some people may say like, oh, well, this is obviously Bakugo because he did the exact same thing that Deku did. When Deku extended his hand to Bakugo, Bakugo went into the past and extended his hand to the One for All user and let One for All be started. I'm like, come on, that's a stretch. You're really stretching it. If that's like an idea that you may have, I mean, sure, but it's obvious that this is more paralleling with Deku reaching out his hand as the second user is reaching out of his hand to Yoichi. So it makes more sense that this is more a representation of Deku than it is for Bakugo. So yeah, it's very interesting. We basically get the origin, like the true origin story, sort of kind of how One for All was able to survive, because we all thought that the first user was somehow freed himself, but he was in a weakened state. But it was the fact that the second and third user worked together and spared his life that they were able to have another chance and an opportunity to completely stop All for One. So yeah, basically, the first user's like, yeah, I bring this up because I need to prove a point. You and this kid are very much alike, so come on, why can't you just help him? As we get someone talking to get Deku, as we cut back over to the present, basically saying, listen clearly, kiddo, we're going full speed ahead now, which I think is making reference to the second user talking to Deku about how we're going to go full speed ahead right now, as Deku confirms with a yes as he's eating a pork bun roll thing. Not 100% sure about that. All I know is that Deku is now going full throttle to the future to try and stop One for All. Or should I say All for One? Gosh, he needs a name. Please, Hirokoshi, please drop his name. I beg of you. He could be Deku's father for all I care, as long as he has a name. So yeah, that's pretty much all for the chapter itself. And I thought it was a really cool and very interesting chapter because, first of all, I thought that we were going to immediately cut over to seeing the Hero kids at school, cutting to Deku's friends, seeing what they're learning in school, seeing what they may be learning in the field. I thought we were going to cut over to them, but no, we still stuck with Deku. And I still am confident that if not next chapter, within the next few chapters, we're going to have to cut over to the heroes and the Hero Academia, because you know it's still the title of the series, and see what they are doing in comparison to seeing what Deku is doing. But it's still very interesting to see that we are still getting more about Deku, still getting more of his development with the quirk of One for All and the previous users, and how now he has all the previous users on his side. But what is very interesting is that we still don't know the second and the third user's quirk. But from some initial translations through the spoilers and scans that we got initially, we could have gotten a hint about it from the line where the second user is saying we're going full speed ahead now, because they were saying that potentially full speed could be a play on Deku's new quirk. Potentially, it isn't confirmed. Unfortunately, we don't really get that much confirmation in this chapter. The only confirmation that we get is that the first user's name is Yoichi. So that's the only confirmation that we get, as well as the confirmation that the second and the third user were a pair of heroes who worked together, that they grew up during the time where All for One reigned over Japan, and that they were the initiators to his downfall, not just by fighting him head on and gathering an army, but freeing his younger brother from his clutches, so that One for All could eventually be passed down to the second user, being passed on to the third user, and then hopefully inevitably being passed on to the fourth user. So this is very interesting, and it also shows that most likely what happened is that it was passed on in succession, and that potentially what happened is that when it comes to the third user, he potentially saw his partner die and was able to escape. But we still don't know that 100%, but it's very implied that that could be the case. So we got a little bit of that. We got to see how Hero Society is now like being crumbling, and how paranoia and fear is running over the masses and causing their ideas to fluctuate, where they see someone who looks completely different to them and could quote unquote be a monster, that they would initially attack them without hearing them out, which is very discriminatory and shows that, yeah, what happened with the Paranormal Liberation Front? Sure, the villains may not have won, and the heroes definitely lost, but there were still repercussions of it, which include, and is not limited to, more discrimination, fear, paranoia, and society basically regressing back to the Dark Ages, where people were basically vigilantes, and a whole lot of casualties were occurring. So, for those who still think that the Paranormal Liberation Front did nothing, and that there are no stakes, society has literally stopped. Society has literally regressed. It mattered. I can't believe people haven't seen it yet. But yeah, for the most part, that's all I really want to say about this chapter. What do you think about this chapter? Do you think that we potentially got hinted to the second and third users' quirks in this chapter? What do you think about Deku now being able to communicate with all of the users? Do you think that's good? Do you think that's bad? And what do you think about how this sort of arc has been structured, where we cut to the future and then have flashbacks to the past? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Me personally, I think it's just okay. It's not something like unique that we haven't seen before, but it just makes sense that instead of just getting everything provided to us at once, that it's being provided into small portions per chapter, just to make it easier to digest and understand. So yeah, what do you think? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. Leave a like on this video if you did. Smash that like button if you liked this video, you liked the review, if you liked this chapter. And if you didn't, leave your reasons why you didn't like this chapter down below. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Do all of that cool jazz. And hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!